What Italy is proposing with regards to its gold is by no means revolutionary or any big change, but it could lead to this nation leaving the European Union. Let's talk about it as we explore. That's not the only reason why this is a big deal. There's more to it than just that. It's the whole nature of what gold has been for thousands upon thousands of years. But nonetheless, this latest proposal here is a big stand against the power brokers of centralized government. And this is, I'm going to be referencing a couple of pieces here, both of them very biased in their opinion. But nonetheless, we'll try to break it down to see exactly what's happening here. The Brothers of Italy party is now picking a fight with the Bank of Italy and the European Union itself over its gold reserves. Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party is picking a fight with the country's influential central bank over gold reserves, stepping up a conflict between the government and Italy's technocratic elite. Last month, Lucio Milan, who is chief whip of the Brothers of Italy in the Senate and a close ally of Meloni, introduced an amendment to the 2026 budget that would assert the Italian state ownership of its close to 290 billion euros, over $300 million worth of gold reserves held by the Bank of Italy. Now, again, you'll probably be asking yourself a question, well, isn't this Italy's gold anyway? I mean, it's in the nation of Italy. What's the deal here? Well, we'll get into that in a moment, but first, ownership is really has its privileges. You know, all the gold you see here is owned by me, and you can own your own gold too. Summit Metals encourages you to have your own stack of gold. Of course, yes, I know they're a dealer, but they're one of the fastest growing bullion dealers on the planet right now. A great company with great customer service, and it's a good idea to have gold in your possession for sure. Buy at your own pace and your own level of understanding of the metal. You can start as small as 1 gram, maybe even smaller to some extent. But there's various different sizes you can get, and they're all, good options to have on the table if you want to be able to be your own central bank. And because the Central Bank of Italy, well, this calls into question as to whose gold is it? At first glance, the article continues, it seems clear enough why this amendment came into being. Italy has a staggering amount of debt on its books, around 140% of the national gross domestic product, and is under strict EU orders to rein in its deficit, resulting in a perennial budget squeeze. So it might seem logical to raid the world's third largest reserve of gold to pay down Europe's second largest debt pile. The temptation to do so has been getting stronger by the day. The value of the bank's hoard has risen 60% over the past year, thanks to a global rally driven largely by other central bank buying. But as usual in Italy, it's not so simple. For one, the amendment doesn't imply putting the gold to any specific use, but merely claims that the gold is a property of the Italian people. Well, that should be a no-brainer because it should be the Italian people's gold. Nothing is going to be transferred, Milan himself told Politico over the weekend. That gold has always belonged to the Italian people, and that's going to stay the same. He pushed back at even the most distant hypothesis that even the smallest part of the gold reserves are going to be sold off. So there is that. So it's not about their budget problems. I think in some way that's sort of a hit that Politico and some other media outlets have taken on there. But, why is this happening? Well, largely some of these larger nations are paying for the debts and problems of other nations. And very well could be, since they're around one centralized government, the European Union and the European Central Bank. I can't help but think that it's not been a good deal for Italy. But what do I know? There could be a lot more to it than that. But 3 previous prime ministers, Romano Prodi, Silvio Berlusconi, and Giuseppe Conte, have all had a sniff at similar schemes to bring the gold under a more direct government control. But those schemes, the last of which was only 6 years ago, all foundered on the objections of the European Central Bank. The European Central Bank published a withering opinion on the legality of the proposal, bluntly reminding Rome that the EU treaty gives the euro system exclusive rights over holding and managing the foreign reserves of those countries that use the euro. I'm pointing out that it said exactly the same thing 6 years ago. This proposal has no chance of materializing, said Lucio Pench, a professor specializing in economic government and a fellow of the think tank Bruegel, pointing to the clear conflict with the EU treaty. But if the amendment is essentially just gesture politics, the question rises, what exactly is its purpose? Some see it as a warning shot at the Bank of Italy, arguing that Milan, as Meloni's chief Senate whip, is unlikely to have acted without the premier's consent. If the quarters of the bank itself behind the neoclassical facade of Via Nazionale in the heart of Rome, the move prompted consternation at the highest level. I can tell you that people at the bank are furious, fumed the official, adding that while the proposal is illegal under EU law, our government, even if made up of thieves, cannot steal from the central bank, even if it writes it into law. And that's the same case with the United States or any other nation. If it's the gold of the people or the bank, it's not like people are going to go in and steal it. The Bank of Italy declined to comment on the point, but several bank officials admitted privately that the move is consistent with a growing sense of antagonism from Meloni's government. The bank has always drawn the ire of the populist right, which blames its veracity for the erosion of real wages over the 3 decades and the fall of the late Silvio Berlusconi. But such antagonism is also consistent with a broader trend across the Western world, where deeply indebted governments are leaning on their central banks as fiscal needs become more pressing and as dissatisfied with the technocratic management of the economy grows. Donald Trump's attacks on the Federal Reserve this year have seen the clearest example of that. As one ECB official told Politico, the independence of the central banks is not the only problem in the U.S. There is some encroachment globally happening. Well, here's a news flash for Politico. Central banks are always political, every single time, and that includes our Federal Reserve, big time. They've been political. Who of these people are appointed by? Politicians. Now, I don't know how it works in Italy or some of the other European Union nations, but nonetheless, make no mistake, no matter what, they are political entities, and they've always been under the guise and the false pretense that they are supposed to be independent. Yeah, they're independent from the opposition party. That's the only matter here. In fact, there's another piece here from Euro News, which is just as biased, talking about property of the people. ECB says Italy's gold isn't political treasure. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde has warned Italy against a proposal to declare the country's gold as property of the people. The move comes in response to a budget amendment proposed by the ruling Brothers of Italy party, which seeks to change the way reserves are managed. Questioned by Italian MEP Pasquale Tridico of the Five Star Movement, Lagarde clarified that according to European law, the holding and management of reserves is the exclusive responsibility of the national central bank of each member state, which are beholden to the European Central Bank, who have their own reserves. The Bank of Italy is no different than any other national bank. This is not a trivial issue because Italy is the third largest holder of gold among all the central banks. Such a statement reiterates the ECB's position set out in 2019 when the League Party in Italy raised the same issue. It's also the same year that the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central bankers, classified gold as a Tier 1 asset, putting it equal to and on par with cash reserves. Now that goes to tell you that that's how important gold is. And I'm telling you, I believe it should be of the people and for the people. And so this goes to show you that central planning is not the way to go. And this could lead to such a big enough rift that we see this proposal fail, but yet Italy make a move away from the European Union. I've never liked the idea of a European Union anyway, because it does take away, essentially, some of the nation's rights. And there's no accountability to certain officials, to the people, from the European Union. So I've always thought it was a bad idea. Let me know if you're from one of these nations in Europe that are part of the EU. But there it is. I think in some ways, I think they kind of banded together as a way to compete with the U.S. But nonetheless, so that is where that is. And I tell you, I'm very curious to see how this will play out, because it is a fundamental right, I think, of a nation that has its goal to be able to do with that gold what they please. But obviously, when they signed up to become a part of the European Union so many years ago, it seems like they signed some of those rights away. So I would be all for Italy getting out of the European Union altogether and to be masters of their own gold reserves. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.